All right, so today we're going to talk about like the how I'm going to need y'all to stop asking for money and start offering value instead. Like look at fundraising for your nonprofit in a different lens. But before we get started, I just want to do a quick introduction and let people know who I am, people that are new to this page and people who have not met me yet. My name is Stacey. I'm a nonprofit consultant and I help small to mid-sized nonprofits grow their impact and revenue generation potential through strategic planning and capacity building. So if that's you, definitely stick around because then a lot of times you may not know what your nonprofit needs. Stick around. And I promise you, I will get you out of your comfort zone and help you get to the next level with your nonprofit organization to ensure that you're serving people powerfully and the way that you were meant to. So with that said, nonprofits, um, just checking my notes. Where's my notebook? Oh my God. Now, nonprofits that they have a tendency to only ask for money. Um, these folks often feel like they're begging, right? Like they're begging and they're the ones that have to ask, and it feels uncomfortable because people are not comfortable to do with that, to ask people for money. Now, first of all, if you're not comfortable asking for money or uncomfortable in any way fundraising, like maybe leading the nonprofit organization may not be the best thing for you, and you need to figure out who would be the best fit to lead the organization. That's the first thing I'm going to say. I'm not going to hide anything about it. I'm going to tell you the truth straight up, like whether no chaser. Okay. So let's just take it like that. Now, second thing, the ones that are able to ask for money and able to fundraise and where the leaders are comfortable doing that stuff, they're the ones that are doing okay because they understand the name of the game and they're okay, right? They're okay just offering the value they're supposed to do, asking for money and all of that because they understand that's what's needed to make sure the nonprofit is doing okay. Now, the other thing is that I want to emphasize is that the sentence alone is not enough to get people to jump. It's not enough to ruffle feathers and get people to understand the needs of your nonprofit organization because let's be honest, too many nonprofits out there, they're operating with a charity mindset instead of a business mindset. And you want to approach it strategically to ensure that people are understanding the needs of your nonprofit organization without you pestering them. Okay, so if people you don't want, okay, how do I phrase this? Some people think that fundraising means asking for donations or throwing together a grant proposal and hoping for the best, when it really isn't, because people out there, they're not going to fund desperation. Just because you're desperate doesn't mean it's their emergency, right? Your urgency or your emergency is not my urgency. Why should I care that you're desperate and need it right now? Like, what have you done for me? Okay, so that's something I want you to keep in mind. People do not fund desperation, they fund impact. Okay, so right now, too many nonprofits are out here sounding desperate instead of showing why they are worth investing in. What's the impact you've been making in the community to make sure that people want to give to your organization? So that's what I want you to look at, and that's what I want you to focus on because you may be unknowingly sabotaging your funding efforts because you keep making the same three critical mistakes. Now, the mistakes, I'm going to talk a little bit more about them, but it's important for you to grasp that oftentimes you may be your own op. Okay, like I just figured out what the word op means, so I'm going to use it. So you may be your own enemy in some cases. So I need you to fix these mistakes that we're going to talk about today. No matter how many grants you apply for, how many donations, campaigns that you're launching, you need to be fixing these issues. Now, mistake number one that I want to bring up is the fact that your nonprofit may talk about its needs instead of donors' interests. Okay, because then it's easy to talk about the needs of your nonprofit. Oh my gosh, we need to purchase hay for our horses to make sure that they're safe, to make sure they have food and stuff like that, right? But in reality, no one donates because your nonprofit needs money. People are donating because they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. So you have to come to a conclusion or come to a realization that individuals, right, because they want to feel that way, you can't be making that same mistake over and over again, just like every nonprofit, right? Fundraising messages, like oftentimes they sound like, oh, we need your support to keep our programs running. Help us hit $50,000 in goals in our goals by the end of the month. Without your donations, we won't be able to continue this work. I've heard this one so many times. I'm done tired of it. Okay. Without your donations, we won't be able to continue the work. Okay. I'm sorry. Um, got a family to raise, okay? So we have to think about what the best approach is and how to make sure that we are going about it in a strategic way. Because, like, all these messages, I want you to ask yourself, what do you see what's wrong with these messages? I really want you to like look at like hear them yourself or repeat them to yourself and try to decipher what is wrong with these messages. If you think anything is wrong with these messages, drop them in the comments, okay? Drop them in the comments of what you think, because then I'm going to give you some time to think about what you think is wrong with these messages. I'm going to repeat it. We need your support to keep our programs running, or help us hit $50,000 goal by the end of the month, or without your donations, we won't be able to continue this work. Now, definitely drop what's wrong with these messages in the comments, and we can talk a little bit more about that. Now, the other thing that I want you to realize that these messages, like, I'm gonna let you write down what's wrong and then think about it before I keep going, because I want you to really, really work on that and think about what's wrong with these messages before I keep moving on, okay? So one thing I will say with these messages is that it's all about what the nonprofit needs, not about what the donor cares about. Okay. So you have to do the work to figure out what the donor actually cares about, because that part is very important. If you've never done that before or don't know how to do that, I want you to drop a 2 in the comments. Drop a 2 if you do not know how to figure out what your donors care about. I want you to write that a 2 in the comments and let me know, because at least it'll give me an idea of how many people need support with ensuring that they're working on figuring out donor personas, right? Now, the other thing is that donors don't give to keep your doors open. They are giving to make an impact. So I need you to remember that when you are crafting your messages, because a lot of times their job is not to keep the doors open for you. Now, I want you to really think, what if Nike ran some ads and they were saying, we need $10 million to stay in business. Please buy a pair of shoes. Would you care? Like, really, would you care? It sounds ridiculous, right? Now, people don't buy Nike because Nike needs money. They buy Nike because they believe in the brand, the message, and how it makes them feel. They like the shoes, right? Sometimes they like the product. And why would people want to buy, like, donate to your nonprofit? Because your nonprofit needs to keep its doors open. That's why the messaging, there needs to be a change in the messaging in the nonprofit industry. So why do nonprofits think donors should act any differently than if Nike was running a ridiculous ad like that, right? They shouldn't. So if you're looking for more funding, if that's something that you need, I need you to stop asking for help and start inviting donors to be part of something powerful. Okay. So mistake number one, I'm going to reiterate what mistake number one was. Mistake number one was that your nonprofit talks about its needs instead of the donor's interest. Now we're going to go into interest number two, or mistake number two. Mistake number two is treating fundraising like a one-time transaction instead of a relationship. I hope you caught that. So mistake number two is treating fundraising like a one-time transaction instead of a relationship. Now, a lot of nonprofits are treating donors like ATM machines instead of long-term partners, only going to the donors when they need money, which does not work. Okay, you need to be able to foster a relationship with these people to ensure, with your donors, to ensure that they feel like they're part of your organization and contributing to something. They are not an ATM machine, okay? You like stop running a fundraiser by getting the donation and then disappearing until the next campaign. It doesn't make sense, okay? I'm going to talk about some numbers that I made sure to write down in my notes today. So 74% of donors say they would give again if that nonprofit actually followed up with them in a meaningful way. Now, fundraising effectiveness project was the source for that one. So imagine that 74% of them said they would give again if the nonprofit followed up. And the average nonprofit loses about 60 of their first-time donors because they never built a relationship with them. 60% of their first-time donors. That's an insane amount of people that you're losing, and because you can't retain your donors, and that's not okay. All right. So I want you to think about it in a different way. Would you keep giving to an organization that only talks to you when they need money? Think about it in a personal life. Do you talk to family members that only reach out to you and holler at you when they need money? Okay, I want you to be honest about that and realize that it just sounds insane saying it. So why would it be any different in your organization? Why would people want to feel used, right? The organizations that are able to secure long-term funding don't just ask for money, they're engaging, communicating, and keeping their donors involved year round. Because if you start treating your donors like they're piggy banks, they'll treat your nonprofit like a one-time cause. Because then if you treat somebody like they're not good, they're gonna see you as you're not good enough to invest the time and energy in. Okay. So that was mistake number 2. So mistake number 2, treat fundraising like a one-time transaction instead of a relationship. Now, mistake number 3 is you expect people to give without giving anything to them in return. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know if you've ever heard the term you have to give to receive. And just because you're running a nonprofit doesn't mean that you should only expect something from someone and not think about giving anything to them. Okay. So I want you to make something really clear. Your nonprofit is not entitled to funding just because you're doing good work. Again, the entitlement is what we need to check. This is one of the biggest mindset shifts that a lot of nonprofit leaders need to make. No matter how powerful your mission is, people do not owe you donations. People don't owe you jack squat, okay? Now, funders, donors, corporate sponsors, they want to know, all of them, what's in it for me. No matter how selfish that sounds, that is the reality of things that I need you to come to terms with. When you're asking anyone for anything, always ask yourself, what is in it for them? Ask yourself that question before they ask you that, because you have to know the answer, because you have to be able to offer value to these individuals without them looking for it. Because if you're coming to them with a proposition or a request, you have to be able to give something in return, right? No, it's not another tax deduction, because I know that's an easy thing for nonprofit to say, oh, if you give, you'll be able to get, it's tax deductible in your taxes, right? No, a tax deduction is not what you're looking for. Like, you have to be smart about it and create value for your supporters. Look into other ways that you can create value for them. Offer networking opportunities, offer exclusive donor memberships, create sponsorship visibility opportunities, high impact storytelling that will make your donors feel like they're part of the solution. There's a reason I talk about storytelling and increasing your storytelling. It's because when you do that and you shout out donors and being able to contribute and whatever stories you're telling, they feel like they did something. Okay, so it is part of like your donors, anybody, stakeholders, supporters, or whatever, they want to be part of the solution. They need to understand that funding with you or fundraising with you isn't just about giving to you, or isn't just about you asking them. It's about providing reason for people to engage, to stay engaged, and to become part of the solution. So mistake number 3 that I just talked about is you expect people to give without giving anything in return. Okay. Now, the one thing I want to say about this, because then today's going to be a little shorter. I do have a headache today, but I wanted to make sure I showed up. If your nonprofit is doing any of these 3 things I mentioned on here, I want you to do something and focus on that, right? Talk about your needs. Stop talking about your needs, your nonprofit's needs, and talk about your donors' interests instead, right? And stop treating fundraising like a one-time transaction and continue engaging with them and following up with the funders to ensure that they feel like there's a relationship there. And stop expecting money without creating value. You have to give something back for them to want to give. Because when you do that, then you don't like you won't experience a funding problem like you are because you're positioning yourself and your nonprofit in a way that leads to successful fundraising. Okay, so this is why you're not going to be ignored if you do these things. This is why fundraising will feel like uh smooth sailing. It won't be an uphill battle anymore, and this is why like these are things that will help your donations grow. Okay, so shifting your approach will help you keep running, not run into the same problems anymore year after year. It will help you find a different way to address these things. Okay, now I'm gonna be real. If you have no grant, no viral fundraiser, or no new donor campaign, nothing's gonna change or fix it until you do. So you have to start working on fixing these issues or fixing the way you approach all of these things to ensure your nonprofit is actually being successful year round. So, like I said, if you're tired of just the hustling and bustling trying to figure out a long-term strategy, I want you to realize that you are not alone. And really, it's about strategy and nonprofits to ensure that you're able to generate revenue in the way the way you need to. And the one thing that I'm going to say for the month of March, I'm opening more strategy session slots because it's the best way to work with me. I have 4 strategy session slots open for this week. And then they're going to be about 12 slots open, and I want you to secure yours. They are $597. They're a great opportunity to work for me without having me on retainer to help with strategic planning and capacity building. So definitely book a strategy session. It's a 90-minute session. We work on an action plan that we develop for your nonprofit organization so you can start having direction and what you need to do in your organization to grow and start generating the revenue that you need to make more of an impact. So this is where I'm going to help nonprofits map out a custom revenue strategy so they can stop quote unquote begging for money and start attracting real consistent funding, because then that's the name of the game. You want to start attracting consistent funding. So I want you to click the link in the comments, because it is in the comments. You can go in my stand store, book your strategy session. If you don't see a date that you want, send me a DM and then we'll talk about it to see if I can adjust the dates, because then I may have an opening other places. So just let me know if you don't find a date that works for you, because it's time to get off the struggle bus, not stop struggling, get off the struggle bus, okay? And don't get back on it. Start positioning your nonprofit for sustainable success, and essentially let's get to work. But like I said, in the middle of this, I do have a headache today, so I'm not going to stay long. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments or send me a DM. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And if you have any questions, #live. If you have if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, #replay. If you're here live, #live. I'm looking forward to helping everybody. And I'm gonna go now and take a quick nap and see if this headache will go away. But it was a pleasure. I hope you have a good one.